Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to my hobby blog. I am extremely excited today because ever since catching up on One Piece and getting to chapter 1160 and then reading the last two chapters live, I have been going back and reading Berserk by Kentaro Miura, which is my favorite manga series. I love One Piece, I really do, but I think Berserk is a lot closer to my heart in terms of sort of what goes on in the series, the themes, the characters. I just love everything about the series. And so I'm going to be talking about the first four volumes of, and I'm sorry if I get this name wrong, but I think it's the Empire of the Millennium Falcon or Millennium Falcon Empire or the Hawk of the Empire or Empire of the Hawk. I don't really know the name of the arc. I should have looked at it beforehand, but I was too excited to record. I didn't think to look until I saw recording. So here I am. I fucking love this series. This is going to be full spoilers all the way up to volume 26. So I'll be covering 22 to 26. And oh my gosh, what crazy, crazy stuff happened in these arcs or in these volumes. It is insane, all of the really hype and exciting events that happen in these volumes. I was really just could not stop reading. I wanted to do a review after just 3 volumes, but I just couldn't stop reading. So this is why I'm doing like 5 or 6 volumes, 4 or 5. I don't know exactly how many. But I'm just really loving everything that's going on in the series. Right off the bat, we have a meeting between Griffith and Guts for the first time in a very long time. There was a very faint meeting in the last arc at the end of the Conviction arc where Griffith just kind of stared at Guts and they didn't really have a word. But in this volume, in volume 22, they do have a discussion and they talk about all of the sort of betrayals that Griffith has done. And he says, like, my dream has not changed. I still want my own kingdom. And I want my own empire. And we get this really amazing introduction after this scene of Griffith and his new companions, who, there are 2 of them who I especially love, and that is Grunbeld, who is this really giant, strong warrior. He is basically Radahn from Elden Ring, which I'm very happy with. I love Elden Ring. And I can definitely see the influence that the series has had on Elden Ring, especially with these volumes. But I also really love the character from the Kushan. He's the exile Rakshas. He is so fucking cool. I won't lie. I want to know everything there is to know about this guy through the volumes. He is like this shadowy guy who appears like in a billowing black cloak, and he has this awesome like Majora's Mask type of mask. And he has like the creepiest lines that I think I've ever read in the series. And I love them. I love these characters. I am very excited to see where that goes, because by the end of this few volumes I read, we did get a lot with Grunbeld. I can't remember exact. I think it's Grunbeld. But I'm just so excited because we have a few more. We also have like a Moonlight swordsman who is like the best of his civilization. And he's trying to find more, like, stronger swordsmen. I can't remember exactly what that character was all about, but he is really fucking cool. Like, everyone who comes together and kneels in front of Griffith during that scene is just very intriguing to me. And this is one of my favorite sort of open-ended plot lines for me right now, is how are they going to be involved in the storyline? How are they going to affect what Griffith is trying to do? Because Griffith just immediately is able to recruit them, because there's a big battle happening between Midland and also the Kushan, who have been in this series a while now, and they keep popping up. And we get a appearance by, what's his name? An appearance by, oh my gosh, it's a Kushan guy who has the throwing stars and stuff. that Guts fights right before the eclipse, I believe. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I hope I do later. But I really love this volume for all of that, because what a great way to set up the arc, in my opinion, because there's so many things that this sets up. And we have the main boss, who are like the, Griffith and the God Hand, but now we also have like end series bosses for our characters to battle with before getting to Griffith and the God Hand, or whatever the ending of the series is headed towards, which is unfortunate because Miura's dead, and so we won't really get his entire vision, which is getting really hard for me to wrestle with as I read these chapters. But I really enjoyed those panels too, where we have Nosferatu Zod there as well, and he and Griffith are just mowing, well, not Griffith, but Griffith is kind of mowing down people as well, but we have all of these great companions bow down to Griffith, and then they just wipe out the army of, I think it's the Kushan, because Midland still doesn't know anything about Griffith's sacrifice at the eclipse. So they're all like, "Oh, Count Griffith, it's so great to see you." And I'm sitting here like, "No, get away from him. Like, he's going to kill you all." But he doesn't do that. He has a few people from Midland who are part of the royalty. They sort of immediately fall in love with him, and they're hanging off of him. And we have this really interesting bit where Griffith sort of says, like, well, it's not Griffith, but it's a male character. He doesn't want to, he sees like an evilness within Griffith, and he doesn't want to swear to Griffith, and he's thinking this to himself, all of this, but his body is sort of it's like he's being possessed. And so he bows down to Griffith and swears to him as well. And I'm very curious to know where Midland fits into all of this. If they're just going to become like a puppet state for Griffith, and that's how he's sort of going to piggyback off of that. But it also seems like that Griffith just wants an even bigger country, maybe occupying Kushan, Midland, and all the other countries, which we haven't gone too much about. But I really love this volume as well, because we get a lot of flashbacks with Seppuku and Farnese, who are sort of taking care of each other. Farnese was someone who brought in Seppuku as a servant, and they sort of grew very close together, and we don't really know that before this volume. So that was really interesting to get those flashbacks this volume, and sort of seeing how Farnese grew up and saw the burnings a lot, and had her own really weird rituals, killing small animals and sacrificing and doing all this just awful stuff. And it adds a really like interesting layer to her character as well, because we know that she is capable of doing these very heinous deeds. So I'm very curious to know after these volumes where these two characters go, because my God, does it get worse for our characters from here on out. So in the next volume, we have Guts and Casca. They meet with Farnese and Seppuku is kind of like, yeah, we should kill them. We need to, take care of them. Farnese decides right then and there, she's like, no, we need to ally with Guts, because he is anti-Hawk. He is against the dark side, against the demons, against the God Hand, and there's a lot of prophecy stuff going on during these volumes as well that Farnese is sort of telling us about how Griffith is sort of the Hawk of Darkness, and there's the Hawk of Light, who I think they call Casca the Hawk of Light, which is really interesting to me. But during this time, we have a struggle between, Casca sort of walks off, and everyone doesn't know where she is, and so they all split ways trying to find Casca, and Guts finds her and ends up raping her, which was something I was not expecting at all. I was really, really disturbed by this because this was something I was really worried about while reading these volumes after volume 13, the Eclipse chapters, because I really thought that Guts would be able to sort of be like a shelter for Casca during this really harrowing time, as she sort of, I don't know if she'll ever get her consciousness back or her individuality back and her personality, but I would like to think that she will someday and sort of be able to take back her life. But for now, she's this really vulnerable character that Guts ends up having this really twisted, dark creature in his head. And I think they call it the Hound of Darkness or something like that. And it's telling him, like, oh, I know you're angry at Casca. She keeps getting lost. Like, you need to teach her a lesson. And so Guts rapes Casca, and that was one of the most harrowing panels I've seen since the Eclipse. It was really fucked up, and I did not like it at all. But at the same time, it's like, of course, there's a lot of emotion going on, and I'm someone who wants to feel very emotional when I'm reading. And Miura really takes us there, and takes us to lengths that I never thought we would go, because, as I was saying earlier, I thought Guts would be able to overcome this, because he's had many thoughts throughout these volumes, before this one as well, where he is really frustrated with Casca and how she keeps getting lost and he has to protect her. And he doesn't really know how best to protect her because she sort of just wanders off, and all the ghosts and demons are hunting them as well because they have the brand. And it's really sort of a thing for Guts to overcome, and he failed. He absolutely failed, and it was really heartbreaking to see these panels. But after that, we get this introduction at the end of volume 22 of a witch lady, or a witch girl, who is named Shirka. That's how I'm going to pronounce her name, because it looks very German to me, and Shirka sounds very natural as a name for her. So I'm going to just call her that. That's how I'm going to pronounce her. I'm sorry if it's not correct. But she is a really, really fascinating character because she's able to tap into Odd, which is the magical source of this world. And she's able to cast spells. We have this really amazing scene where she's sort of hovering in subconsciousness. And she's trying to connect to all the different gods of the land in order to beat back the trolls that end up attacking this village later in the volumes that I read. And it's really, really fascinating because we haven't really gotten anything magical in this series up until this point with Shirka. And I also really love her mentor as well, Florina, I believe her name is, or Floria, something like that. And they both have this really deep connection to the magic. And it's a really fascinating direction and exciting direction as well for me that the series is taking, because our characters, after they find Casca, and Casca is very distrustful of Guts now and sort of has the same reaction that she does with Griffith at times, where she just starts sort of whimpering and just doesn't know what to do, and everyone's like, oh, what's going on? And we have this thing where Shirka is able to read minds, and depending on how strongly your thoughts go through, she is able to read that. And the one time she very faintly glances at Casca's brain, she is really affected because I think she sees some of the eclipse and knows that it's getting really sort of dangerous being around these people. But she is tasked by Florina to support them because there's an older guy who had seen Florina when he was a young boy, and no one believed him about these stone golems that were coming out of the ground, and they were the town of Enoch specifically, where he came from, doesn't believe him that he went to this, mystical elf house. And so they run into him and they both find the elf house. And I love it. I love this entire section. It is absolutely exposition city in this section of the volume. And I loved it. I love exposition in the series because we don't get enough of it, I feel like. But when it comes, it's like a waterfall. It's like a fire hose. I'm just being drowned in all the information. And during this time, we get all of the sort of discussions around the magic system. There's like 3 different, or there's, yeah, like 5 or 6 different layers of the world that the different magic users can use. And we also have an appearance by Skull Knight at the elf house. As our party of adventurers are leaving, we see a silhouette in the window, which I was really stupid when I was reading it. I thought it was like Griffith or someone just kind of like staring down at, Casca and everyone and being creepy, but it ended up being Skull Knight. And Florina is talking to him and calls him a king. And so it makes me wonder, was Skull Knight a king of a kingdom at one point? Or was that sort of like a term of endearment for Florina, or by Florina to Skull Knight? So I thought that was really cool. And I'm really curious, to know if we're going to get any more with Florina, because she is such a fascinating character. She teaches all of our characters, Shirka included, how the magic system works, and sort of tells them, oh, here's these prophecies. I think this is going to come true. Shirka, you need to go with them. You're really important. They won't survive without you. And the man, he's saying they're talking, he's like, yeah, we've been attacked by trolls a lot. And this leads us to probably my favorite section in Berserk yet, in terms of battles, because, well, aside from the battle at the end, which I will get to and very excitedly will talk about, but until that point, this was very exciting, because we have a volume or 2 of Guts, Farnese, Serpico, Isidro is there. He's actually being very useful. And all these characters are together and helping this town. And Florina gives them a lot of new weapons. And Florina tells, Guts, hey, we have this suit of armor. Would you like to use it? And he's like, yeah, no, I don't need any help. I just need me and my big sword. And so everyone gets these really amazing items. Isidro gets a fireball type of item that lets him sort of explode anything that comes in contact with it. Serpico has a awesome feather whip sword that is able to use really fast wind to cut and completely cut off limbs and bisect trolls and all this stuff. I loved this entire section. It was absolutely badass. I loved all of the different creatures that came out. The trolls were especially nasty. We have this thing called an ogre. That's this building, even bigger than buildings, creature that comes out and is sort of just really disgusting. I really enjoyed this section. I just love all of the fights. We have a Cappy, I think, or a what's it called? It's it's one of the yokai. It's a Kapu, I think, or Cappy. It's something like that. But it's this water creature that is able to spit out magic dots at people, and it's really cool. I love the horse as well. That was really cool. It's a seahorse, frog creature, and I just loved it all. And this entire town, they get attacked by these trolls, and Guts and everyone has to take a different side of the town and protect the villagers. And they eventually pack into this church that then becomes the last safe haven for everybody. And Shirka's on the roof, she's chanting spells, and that's when we get that moment I talked about already, where she tries to connect with all the different gods. And she does connect with the god of rain and the sort of god of the land in order to summon this really great giant flood to then sweep away all the trolls. But guess what? not only bad guys can have bad things happen to them, but this is Miura we're talking about. So we have Farnese and Casca swept up in this flood, and they are taken by what remaining trolls are alive, and they're taken to this really disgusting cave. And Guts and Shirka and everyone is able to track them down using these bracelets that allows telepathy. And they get there, and it is basically a very thin layer of the world where the demon realm intersects with the physical material realm. And so they get into this cave, and Farnese and Casca, they're not being touched by anything, thankfully. But there are many other women who are there, and they're part of like an orgy with the trolls, which I was not expecting at all. I thought this was so disgusting, and I was not expecting some of the artwork that was in this. And one of the women, after being intercoursed by the troll, she like crawls up to them and is like, help me, help me. And then her entire bottom half of her body explodes into like entrails and like living like guts and all this stuff. It's really disgusting. And then after that, like they're hiding out, speaking out to Shirka, asking them for help, or asking her for help. And then we have Guts finally arrive, and he's fighting his way through the cave, kills a bunch of trolls. Isidro is there throwing his fireballs. And there's a point where Guts is separated from everyone else. And I was like, oh no, what's gonna happen? Is one of the God Hand gonna show up? And I was right. We have motherfucking Slan showing up in this cave to fight, or to at least try and take over Guts, because she recognizes him from the Eclipse and is like, oh, the Black Swordsman, the Hunter of Apostles. And it's a really, really cool scene. She looks like Medusa, and it's just so awesome. I fucking loved this section. It was so cool, so badass, so disgusting, and like bloody and twisted. Oh my gosh. This is the kind of shit I love in my hallway, like novels and movies and stuff. If you've ever wanted to watch a movie like this, you should go watch Society by Brian Usna. I just rewatched it for my birthday marathon, but that movie is very similar to what this entire cave scene is about. And it's disgusting. I love it. But during this scene, Guts is sort of restrained by Slan, and she has these really big rings that are cutting him in the back, and he's really not doing well. And suddenly, who else but shows up but Skull Knight? And he goes in and he's fighting all these different ogres that are packed into this cave. And Slan is sort of like keeping with Guts, trying to take over him and kind of make him like swear to her and all this stuff, like using some brain possession stuff. And during this time, Skull Knight does probably the most badass thing I've ever seen in any media ever, and he pulls out a sword from his throat, and it's called the Sword of Actuation. And it has like all these different hands like wiggling off of it. There's like screaming faces. It's made of many different behelets, which I was like, my brain was exploding during this volume. And it only gets better. Like, Berserk is just fucking the best series of all time, without a doubt. I love One Piece. I'm sorry, Oda, but like, Miura is a genius, in my opinion. Just absolutely master of his craft. I just fucking love this series. And eventually, Skull Knight and Skull Knight and Guts are able to escape Slan. And Guts is able to stab his sword into Slan. And we realize it's not really her. It was more like a vessel for her. And she leaves the vessel and is like, we'll see you again. And it's really cool. I love it. I love this volume. I just fucking loved it. It was just the absolute best shit I've ever read in fantasy and literature in general. And I just cannot wait to continue, because after they leave the cave and they rescue Casca and Farnese, everyone leaves the cave and Skull Knight sort of disappears and is not seen by anybody else, which is interesting. I don't know why only Guts can see him, and I guess Casca, but it makes me wonder. I'm very curious to know what he has going on that only allows Guts to be able to see him. It's very interesting. But during this time, they leave the cave, and then we get a really fun scene where we have Nosferatu Zod and Grunwald show up, or Grunwald, I'm sorry. Both of these characters show up and challenge Guts to a fight. Nosferatu Zod is fighting Skull Knight, and they're having an awesome fight, and then Grunwald challenges Guts to a one-on-one, and Grunwald is just beating the shit out of him, which is what I was expecting, because Grunwald is a giant and one of the best warriors and a companion of Femto, I should say, not Griffith. But I just really love this fight because Guts is really pushed to the edge, and he's really suffering. Shirka, Isidro, Casca, Farnese, they're running away from these different apostles that are trying to get to them and kill them and eat them, everything on the list. And Shirka finds the Berserker armor, which is what Florina had planted beforehand at some time in the distant past. I think maybe Skull Knight put it there. I can't remember exactly who put it there, but Florina knows about it and tells Shirka, like, you need to get this armor to Guts, because he's not going to survive. And so Guts is able to crawl away from the fight when Grunwald is distracted by Skull Knight, I think, or someone else. And Guts crawls into the cave with Farnese and everyone else, and he puts on the armor, and it really, like, it allows him to ignore the pain and not even feel the pain and all the wounds that he has. And it sort of becomes like a magical power armor. Sorry about that. There's a gnat or something flying around. But there was a really cool moment where, like, we just have some of the best artwork during the scene where Guts is struggling to maintain control over this armor. And then he does, and he becomes, like, the coolest fucking warrior I've ever seen. And that's where the volume stops, is mid-battle, when he's using the Berserker armor. So I'm very curious to know where the series goes. I just love this book, or this manga, and I don't want to catch up at all, like, past what Miura has done, because I don't want it to end, but it will end, and that's something I have to accept. But I'm loving this series, if you don't know already. This is my favorite series of all time, and I think the rating for these volumes are like a 9.5 to 10 out of 10. I think these were just perfect. They really make you wince and sort of grimace and just everything, cringe. It makes you really feel everything so deeply, especially now that we're in volume 27 is what I'm going to be starting next. And it's just, I love these characters so much, and I want them to finally have rest, and I know that's not coming anytime soon. So I think that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Let me know what you think of these volumes. This is just such an incredible series. And thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the day.